One of the major developments to occur over the past 2 weeks is the fact that the Obama White House is seizing control of late night television. And that's because trust in the usual conduit of state propaganda, television news, is hovering at all-time low levels of around just 23% of Americans trusting the institution of television news. And that's despite the best efforts of the establishment to up their public relations onslaught. Because the mainstream media is not a stream at all. It's a putrid swamp. And that's evidenced by their continual efforts to sell tyranny, even though it's entirely unpopular, as you saw with Piers Morgan's CNN show being axed because of what he admits is his advocacy of gun control. This distrust of US media has been largely driven by the onerous actions of the Obama administration in prosecuting whistleblowers, leakers, and going after journalists like the Associated Press and James Rosen, which is why the United States recently fell to 46th in the world for press freedom. And distrust breeds irrelevance. The New York Times editorial page writers recently admitted that their articles, having once been venerated, now have no impact on public discourse whatsoever. So because it's completely abandoned its role as the fourth estate, as an adversarial watchdog against the government, and instead become a mouthpiece for state propaganda, virtually no one trusts the mainstream media. And what semblance of independent adversarial mainstream media we've got left? Well, the FCC recently tried to eliminate that last shred of independence with this onerous task force that would have sent government-appointed, federal-appointed monitors into newsrooms to police the news. And the proposal was only abandoned after an outcry. And this distrust has resulted in CNN and MSNBC losing almost half their viewers in 1 year. So where have all those viewers gone? Well, many of them, especially the younger generation, have turned over to late-night comedy shows in order to get their news. Of course, the highest rated late-night comedy show for the vast majority of the last 22 years was The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Now, in around October 2012, Leno started incorporating quite hardcore anti-Obama jokes into his monologue. First, he talked about Benghazi-gate. Then 2 months later, he joked that journalists suddenly starting asking real questions of the Obama administration was, quote, very dangerous to the White House. And in the year before he was canned by NBC, Leno made reference numerous times to things such as the AP wiretapping controversy, NSA spying, as well as Leno's call to close down the IRS. And in the weeks before, and in fact on the very final episode of his final appearance on NBC's The Tonight Show, Leno went after Obamacare, joking that Obama's better off smoking crack than passing Obamacare, and then remarking on his final show, and the worst thing about losing this job is I'm no longer covered by NBC. Now I'll have to sign up for Obamacare. Compare that with Leno's replacement on The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon, who one of his first guests was Michelle Obama, who appeared on the show primarily to plug, you guessed it, Obamacare, with the First Lady telling Fallon that young people are knuckleheads who need Obamacare. Now, Jay Leno previously indicated that he would continue hosting The Tonight Show until he keeled over, a disconnect that, according to the New York Times, fed the lingering suspicion that Mr. Leno remained somewhat perturbed with NBC's latest decision to replace him with Jimmy Fallon. And while, of course, politically, Obama has done everything to advance his agenda of executive tyranny, in the cozy make-believe world of late-night comedy television, Fallon has done everything in his power to aid Obama in creating the myth of a down-to-earth, fun-loving guy that you can trust. Obama can basically call up NBC anytime he wants to push any propaganda, whether it be about Obamacare or student loans, and he's automatically on the top-rated late-night show in America. And Fallon even gushed about the fact, quote, "The president booked himself." And while Fallon and Obama jam on the problem of students paying too much interest on their debts, Fallon gets a big fat paycheck from Capital One for pushing credit cards on which students have to pay huge interest rates and get into more debt. Oh, and don't forget that Capital One, if you don't pay up, they may send their goons round to your house for a personal visit. So again, we went from Jay Leno, who had some of his highest ratings ever, on top of his game, for no reason whatsoever, being replaced by Jimmy Fallon, who likes to regularly dress up as a woman and giggle around with Michelle Obama. And immediately, on his debut week, Fallon has Michelle on the show, or Michelle probably invited herself on the show, seeing as that's what the White House apparently does, to push Obamacare, the very thing that Leno had savaged in the weeks and months before his mysterious replacement. So yes, Leno's replacement with Jimmy Fallon was part of the Obama White House's takeover of late-night TV. Young people just aren't watching the news anymore. They're getting their news, their opinion, from late-night television. And another point that Brent Bozell makes is that Fallon has a proven ability to spread his reach into viral videos on YouTube. So that's another string to the bow. And then you have Johnny Carson's head writer, Raymond Siller, coming out last week and basically suggesting that yes, Leno was replaced with Fallon because he had become increasingly critical of Obama. And all the other late night comics, whether they be Letterman or Conan O'Brien, Kimmel or anybody else, they just don't go after Obama. Leno at least started moving in that direction. Within months, he was gone. This is, as Politico labelled it, the changed politics of late-night TV. And as Arsenio Hall admitted, the whole landscape's about to change now that Leno has been replaced with Obama cheerleader Jimmy Fallon. And could this be one of the motivations behind it? Just months before the announcement of Jay Leno's exit, Comcast bought a 49% stake in NBC Universal. One of the top contributors to Barack Obama's 2012 presidential campaign was Comcast Corporation, $337,000 donated. So with the dinosaur media on its deathbed, it really does appear as if the establishment is completely shifting over into entertainment and television in order to spread its talking points and its political agenda. Most recently, Jay Leno's replacement with Jimmy Fallon, who in contrast to Jay Leno, who savaged Obama on Benghazi-gate, Obamacare, wiretapping and numerous other issues, is basically the equivalent of a White House spokesman for the Obama administration. This is the Obama White House's takeover, seizure of late-night television. This is Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com.